Good evening. Welcome. Whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm on. Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, July 23rd, 2018 Council Study Session. We have some presentations on our agenda tonight. First, we have satellite dentures. You guys, Visitor Experience Center. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. As you know, the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism have been working with the Chamber to plan out the idea of a satellite VEC, which is a Visitors Experience Center. And so we'd like to invite Christy Eckfeld to come up here and make a presentation about that, if she's in the building. Here she is.
Good evening, members of council. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the possibility of establishing a satellite visitor experience center. The tourism division would like to have you all consider this so we can provide increased customer service for our visitors. The presentation will speak to the current visitor experience center site, as well at the Truman Courthouse, as well as the proposed satellite visitor experience center at the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Council building. Just a little bit about our current VEC. It opened September 2013 following the restoration of the historic Truman Courthouse. It is operated primarily by volunteers with city staff oversight. We've hosted visitors from around the world, and we have operated it as a visitor information center as well as a gift shop. Its primary purpose is to serve as the official visitor center for the City of Independence. Tourism volunteers greet visitors, provide visitor information, suggest additional activities and sites to visit, hotel and restaurant information. It is the support for lead and tour fulfillment. That is performed in the current Visitor Experience Center. And tourism staff and volunteers also assist the Jackson County Historical Society with conducting tours of the Truman Courthouse. Some general observations of the number of visitors stopping in at the Visitor Experience Center on an annual basis is shown here. It should be noted that approximately 60% of the people that walk in the doors at the Visitor Experience Center are looking for county information, such as Jackson County Assessment, Collections, Recorder of Deeds departments, and the Jackson County Historical Society. That fact, coupled with the lack of recognizable signage and occasional conflict of use in and around the courthouse, the common areas, has contributed to the overall performance level at the Visitor Experience Center. We believe that those numbers represent fewer visitors than we expected, and we should look at additional opportunities to increase our visitor count. A satellite location with a prominent Truman Road address, more convenient access, convenient parking, and increased visibility would achieve that goal. After numerous discussions with Chamber and EDC leaders, we believe that the Chamber of Commerce building would be a perfect location to place the Satellite Visitor Experience Center. The Explore Board, let's see. The proposed site for the VEC would house the current Explore Board, visitor guides, tourism site information, and offer traditional printed materials for sharing with visitors and members of the community alike. The office would be utilized by a full-time tourism staff member, and tourism volunteers would continue to assist visitors at the satellite location. With the Explore Board at the new site, visitor information, a welcome desk would be located in the current lobby opposite of the new Chamber Cafe recently installed by the Chamber of Commerce. In addition to the lobby area and dedicated office space, tourism would have full use of the current parking lot, conference rooms, and various common areas. The use of the lobby, office space, storage closet, utilities, cleaning services, and adding the designation of Visitor Experience Center to the current monument sign would also be included in this agreement. The fee has been quoted at $600 a month. The current Visitor Experience Center at the Truman Courthouse would remain a place where visitors can obtain information and also serve as the tourism volunteer headquarters and training center. As part of the city strategic plan, the Independence for All, in this year's budget, funds were included to greatly strengthen the tourism division's volunteer training program. The goal of the initiative is to enhance customer service, the visitor experience, and connect the various tourism sites together. There are many advantages associated with adding a satellite visitor experience center to the Chamber building. We are told by Chamber staff that 70% of the walk-in traffic at the Chamber of Commerce are people looking for visitor information. The ability to serve individuals at the initial point of contact would increase our customer service, which will hopefully generate more site visits, which is also part of the strategic plan. The ease of access and the visibility of the Chamber building should allow staff to more efficiently service our visitors, as well as creating a much-needed space to implement and operate the enhanced volunteer training program. Thank you for your time and consideration of this proposal. I welcome any feedback, questions, or comments that you may have.
Thank you very much. Anybody?
Thank you for your presentation. Couple of quick questions. First of all, if we were to use the satellite location at the Chamber building, then would it have to have some extended hours? Because I believe it's usually open on Saturdays at the courthouse, right?
That is correct.
The Chamber building, I don't believe, is open.
We would be
On Saturdays.
be able to use it any time that we wanted to. We would have access.
And, okay, the second question then, so they would open it up or allow us to open it up partly for visitors on Saturday, perhaps Sunday?
If
To
we
extend
wanted
it?
to do that, we could do that as well.
And how about signage then?
They would put on their monument side a visitor experience center, whatever designation that we wanted it to say, with a welcome center, whatever it is. I know at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they have a Independence Welcome Center, so we wouldn't want to use that because it could be confused, because there would be two in town and that would be kind of confusing. So we would come up with some different language on for the monument sign to designate what it was.
Or we would just add to their monument sign
Yes,
then?
they're talking about redoing their sign, and so that would be part of redoing the sign. That's
Okay.
correct.
And then the last question has to do with security. I know in this day and age, unfortunately, we have to be a little more aware of that. So both at the courthouse office space as well as the chamber, is there going to be provisions, or would there be provisions for safety for staff?
Well,
If there was an emergency,
Because there's people there.
there's people
There's
there.
guards at
Yeah,
the
the
courthouse.
city is responsible if there's volunteers or staff there.
Sure.
And maybe we could have the police just take a look and evaluate how that could be more secure.
Absolutely. I do
Yeah.
know that in, the discussions that we've had as far as having staff in the chamber building, especially on the weekends, on Saturday, when you come into the current Truman Courthouse location, our office isn't right at the, front when people walk in the doors. So there's many times we don't even know if people are in the building, and we could be surprised by people coming in, as opposed to the chamber location, when people walk in, they're walking right into, the welcome area.
Right, right. Well, I was thinking if we had volunteers there and perhaps on a Saturday or even a Sunday, if somebody was there by themselves, we wouldn't want that. We wouldn't want
No.
someone staffing it by themselves, and we wouldn't want the city or someone knowing that it was open, that we had volunteers there for
Absolutely.
safety. But also, over and above that, I think there's some things that could be done to make it more safe in case something happened.
Absolutely.
So-
And we would always have a staff member
Yeah.
on site with our volunteers.
Thanks.
Councilman?
Christie, I know that we have a contract with the county.
Correct.
When does that contract expire?
2038.
Seriously?
I've got the contract here, yeah.
How much are we paying the county for that contract?
The contract to the county, let's see,
20.
we are paying them,
Are you going to be around that long, Karen?
No, but I'm thinking, can we negotiate and get out of that contract?
that is something I'm not sure of. I know that we pay a percentage of the lease, and then it's about $6,000 a year that we
Yeah.
pay to the county, plus a percentage of the utilities per month.
And we can't have signage on the courthouse grounds, right?
That is correct.
So the chamber office, like, do you have any idea as to the hours it would be open? Would it be open the same time as the courthouse?
Yes.
Or are you gonna alternate?
We would have it open the same hours as the courthouse. We'd have we have 3 staff members that currently work in and out of the current VEC. We'd have, because it would be the volunteer training center, so we'd have, our historic site and tourism volunteer coordinator at the office in our current location, then we would have our visitor experience center specialist, one at each location.
Okay,
So we would have them both staffed.
wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Doherty.
Thank you. I think that's a great place for it because that Truman Road gets all the foot traffic and the car traffic, and it just seems like that is a natural place, is why you see the people are coming in there. With the thought of us putting a new digital signboard up on that corner for city events, I think that would enhance it too. So I think that's a really great idea. I think you're gonna see a big increase in tourism, especially when people can come in there and get that information. So that's a great idea. It's too bad we didn't think of it before we got into the county lease, but I think it'll help us out. So it's a great idea. Thanks.
Are you asking that we approve the move, or?
We're not necessarily moving, we're just opening in a secondary location,
Right,
is what we would like.
all right. So this machine in front, we got this already?
Yes, the
And it
Explore
would
board.
go over there?
Yes, that's correct, because it doesn't get utilized very much where it is.
Yep.
So
Further, yeah.
it would definitely get a lot of use over there.
Yeah, that's not the biggest space, but you're gonna have an office too, right?
We will have a dedicated office, and then when you walk into the chamber, our volunteers would staff the desk when you first walk in. That's where Kelsey is sitting right now. And so that would be operated by our volunteers, and then our city staff would be there, and then the first office that's on the right side, that would be our office. And then we'd be able to utilize that area over there however we wanted to, as far as brochures, guides, information about the community. So we'd be
So
able
how
to
much
do that.
security do you have at the courthouse?
Well, we have 2 armed security guards when you walk in the door, which, that's a lot of security, but sometimes I know that's kind of a little offsetting when you're welcoming people to your community.
Yeah,
So-
they don't smile
And
much.
who? I'm sorry.
They don't smile. When you walk in, those guards, they don't smile.
Good to know. So who provides them?
The county. And they are only there, though, during county business hours. On Saturdays, they are not there.
So you have no security on Saturday,
That's correct.
same as you would not have now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, and next we have an update on the Pioneer Spring Cabin. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As you know, there's been an ongoing discussion about the Pioneer Spring Cabin, and there's been appointed a 3-person committee, which is composed of council members, to try to study the issue. And so actually, the next presentation is going to be presented by Council Member Doherty, and he's going to has a number of slides he'd like to take the council through about the Pioneer Spring Cabin.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I've got a designated clicker out there, so we're going to click through some slides. This cabin, first of all, sits in the 2nd District. And I've been working on this for a little over a year. And as I go through the 2nd District, I thought, what can we do to make the 2nd District look nicer, attract businesses, improve the 2nd District? And one of the things we've been working on was that sermon center, the old rusty windows that were flaking off with the lead paint. We pushed and we pushed, and we got the city manager, the prior city manager put the money in, had custom-made windows, made that look nice, that made that corner a little bit better. We fixed the concrete wall across the street that was falling down on the police station. And we go and look at this cabin. And in my research, and first of all, first and foremost, is how can we enhance our story, enhance our history, and have the cabin live on and tell its story? Because its life is pretty short right now where it's going to sit. It's been there for over 40 years. It was brought there in the 70s. That's not where it was at. It's on the corner of a parking lot. It has no historical significance of the property. It has a phony spring that works with a water faucet that's down in a pit that's not ADA accessible. The cabin does not have a handicap ramp, so ADA it's not accessible. It's been closed for years. It's had no maintenance whatsoever. I went in it the last time I was in, it was the 17th. We took a few pictures. I had all the dead rodents swept out and the cobwebs knocked down. But what can we do to enhance our history and keep our history? And the same thing, and get this corner cleaned up. There's really terrible, ugly landscaping. They barely, it's just mowed and weed eated. There's no landscaping around this. The chimney's messing off the back of it. It's never opened and has nothing in it. We moved the old junk and trash out of it the other day. So what can we do with this? Because it's been in the weather for 40 years, and the termites have really destroyed it. Now somebody said, well, maybe we can give it to somebody, give it to Florida Osage or give it to somebody, but that takes the story away. Left on that corner like it's been for the last 40 years, it will deteriorate. We had the city's engineers come in and look at it, and the building officials, they've declared it structurally unsound. You can take one whole wall and push it, and it moves in and out. So from a distance, from the street, man, it looks pretty good, but you get up to it, and it's not. So in my research, we found that maybe 7 or 8 years ago, prior council and mayor realized they had a real problem with this thing sitting there, and they decided that they were going to have to get it off that corner. It's, like I say, crammed in the corner next to a driveway to a very busy city building. So lots of public input, lots of study, all the historical people, we have all the notes of that, and they came back and they said, where this really belongs is at the Frontier Trails Museum. Well, that makes sense, actually. That's the Frontier Trails. It tells the story of the trail, and that's where it should be. So they went to all this time and trouble and all these meetings, only to find out the state wouldn't let them put it over there. They even put money in the budget, just under $40,000 to move it. The state wouldn't let them put it over there. And why was that? Why, the state owned it. We didn't own it. This council mayor was able to obtain the ownership of the National Frontier Trails Museum. Now, we can enhance it. We've put the museum, we put a new elevator in, we get the second floor, we're doing new displays. So this thing has sat there with no dedicated funding and no maintenance. The termites have destroyed the logs to the point where they're not structurally sound. You can push a pencil through many of the logs right completely through them, that there's just a shell of it left. A lot of the structure is not original. The roof, of course, is not original. The structure holding the roof up is not original, and some of the logs were replaced when they moved it there 40 years ago. Of course, the windows, those are not period on the windows. So you have a building there that no dedicated funding, there's none in the budget now, there doesn't appear to be any in the future. We thought we could get it moved for $50,000 when we first looked at it. That was the number that I was quoted by the parks director. And I found a funding source at the National Frontiers Trails Museum Tourism Fund of up to $200,000. So that's when I said I've got the money. I thought I had plenty of money to get it moved with the estimate that we had and to get it put back up over there. So we had some experts come out and look at it, and I hope somebody's got the name of who it was that came out. Anybody here that knows? I don't see Urfa here. Who? There you go. They came out, they're professionals in restoration, looked at it, and the estimate with contingencies is around $400,000. Well, it's going to be hard pressed to get that out of the general fund. Tourism fund doesn't have that. It'd take many years to raise it. So that's what the cost would be to completely restore it. And it makes absolutely no sense to put it on that spot. But if it was at the Trails Museum, it then would have a dedicated funding source for maintenance because they charge a little fee to come in it, and once that's on the property, that becomes part of the display. It will have to be maintained. So by moving it to somewhere like National Frontier Trails Museum, or as much of it as we can get moved over there, it can be then continue to tell its story. It can be viewed by the tourists, but as they come there, it will enhance the Trails Museum. And again, it gets it funded for repairs. All the years of not putting preservative on the logs, not killing the termites, not keeping the roof from leaking, has really took a toll. There's the view from the street. Now, anybody can tell me that looks good. It doesn't. And the landscaping around it is just an absolute mess. So we have talked with the restoration people, the building people have declared it unsafe. Our historic people have been after. I think even Councilman Perkins had someone come out and look at it. Who'd you have come out and look at it?
My ex-father-in-law and I, we went out there. He has a master's degree in historical interpretation, works out at Fort Osage, where they do have actual remnants of where the original fort and stuff was at, worked for the county for years. Folklorist, has years of experience of folklore history, actual history, student of history. We went out, took a look at it, trying to line up John Peters, double check that name for possibly the end of the week. He is in town, and John Peters runs the, runs the State Museum, to kind of not give us an official report, but an opinion of what he thinks of the building. But yeah, I went out there, and I have a degree in history. I've done plenty of hours logged at Fort Osage with historical interpretation working out there. And the sound of the building is not very good. We should preserve the history. The history is very important to this town, but we did take a look at it. And his unofficial opinion is that there's not a lot of substantial specific history there. I've had several emails from people talking about the Cole younger gang and stuff like that. Well, the younger gang, they hung out a lot in Lee Summit. There's not any, and I'm interested in hearing anybody who can specifically tie in names and history to this building in the prior location that this building was at before we moved it. If there's any significant historical somebody who can be exactly tied there, I would love to see that and hear that. Otherwise, this is a building that should be preserved because it is a portion of it that is actually part of the 1870, 1860 model of build. We should preserve that so people can see how they worked it and how they built it. But if there's not any specific name or significant person that is tied to that, then we should look at to maybe relocate that place in a specific area. And we talked about the Potawatomi Trail to a large degree because there is a memorial there. And the consensus is that there is no specific history located at that spot for the Potawatomi Trail people actually being at that spot. However, being that that was a general area of several acres of possibly spring, that they could have been there somewhere possibly. There was 27 sites that are specifically historically marked from their trail from where they first left to where they finally ended up, but there's no specific historical evidence of that spot being part of the Potawatomi Trail location. Excuse me. So that was kind of the discussion that we had last Thursday.
Okay. So what it is, everyone has looked at it that can separate emotions from fact, has said this thing is too far gone. It cannot be preserved or restored on its present site. And it can never no longer be outside to the weather, that those days are well over. Again, we've had I wish Urfer had been here, our parks director. He'd met with the Indian chief that came out, when the Native American chief out there, and said that the monument is there just recognizing that this was an area, but that has no actual significance. But we're actually going to enhance that part and keep it there. But this cabin really needs to go, or whatever we can get. That shows the roof there on the roof. Those are round fence posts and 2x4s, and that's just lumberyard stuff. So none of that's correct for the unit at all. There are some of the wood that is probably original, but so much of it is termite eaten and rotten, they don't know when they take it apart how much of it's going to crumble, even will come apart. So the best thing you could do for this thing, if anybody really wanted to preserve it, is to take it apart and take it off the corner and then take it to the National Frontier Trails Museum, where they can put a display back together of some type to show it, because there's no way that if left here, it's gonna crumble to pieces. It won't be here another 10 years. It's that far gone. So my suggestion is one of two things. And what we're going to do, got to come up, one option is just keep status quo. There it is, on the opposite corner, not handicap accessible, no money in the budget, no money in future budgets, poor landscaping, and it's closed. And there it sits. The other one is to move it to National Trails Frontier Museum, where it can be viewed, it can tell its story, it will have a dedicated funding source, can be upgraded and repaired as money has it, and it can live on. So what we're going to do is, there's some people who actually don't believe this and think it should stay there. They're going to get a chance to look at it. Starting tomorrow, July 24th, between 9 and 7 p.m., that thing's going to have the doors open. Come over and take a look at it. Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Closed on Sunday. This will run till August 12th. Between tomorrow and August 12th, come by and look at it. Write down your ideas. Hey, we're open to a good idea. My goal is to preserve history, clean up the corner, and get some use out of this unit, and have it where it has maintenance, which it doesn't now. Maybe somebody can come up with a great idea. Write it down. Send it to myself, Councilman Perkins, Councilmember DeLucy, all three of us. Give us your ideas. Give us your idea how to accomplish this. We'll aggregate those up and try to formulate a plan that works. So come by and see it anytime you want. Look at it. Figure out what it's going to do. Look at the surrounding area that it sets on. Look at the fake spring that's there. That's a big hole in the ground with it's not accessible. And then imagine this over at our Trails Museum, where we could have it set up, or at least some of it set up, where you can go in and view it and see what it looks like, touch the logs and see the period furnishings, and then it continues to tell a story. So we've got a committee together, myself again, Councilman Perkins and Councilmember DeLucy. We're going to accept the comments. They could be emailed, they can be writing, bring them up to City Hall, we don't care. Come up with an idea. Maybe there'll be a big benefactor, write us a big check. Or maybe there'll be a GoFundMe page. That's the whole thing. But in its present condition, it's really not a tourism site. It's just something on the corner. Now, what we would do if we do move it to the Trails Museum, that is got some markers for the Indian Trail of Tears. We're going to take and enhance that. We're going to take the pit out, remove the phony spring. They're going to rework the landscaping there. They're going to take the slab that the building was on, put picnic tables there. We're going to enhance that story and let that story be told there, because that's the general area. Again, the chief said that they never kept really good records on Native American history, so they can't say X marks a spot. It was somewhere in this general area, but wasn't on the corner of Truman and Nolan Road. So we can landscape it out, make it look good, tell the story of the Trail of Tears, move that to the Frontier Trails Museum. It can live on that way, and we think that that's a good use of this thing. But again, July 24th through August 12th, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 7, Friday 9 to 5, Saturday 9 to 5, Sunday closed. Go by and look at it and give us your ideas on this cabin, because the goal is to make the corner look good, keep our history, enhance our museum, and maybe expand the Native American story there with some beautiful new landscaping. I've already talked to the director at the Trails Museum. He's already got an idea where this could work out and how they could present it. I've talked to the Parks director. He's excited about going in and re-landscaping it, make it more of the Native American story right there, and getting the thing out of the corner of a parking lot. So that's the story on the little cabin, and more to come later. So.
Thank you, Councilman Doherty.
All right.
Anybody else?
Councilmember Doherty, are we gonna have citizen engagement other than emails?
Yes, you will handle that and set that up anytime you like, and
Okay.
visit with anybody you want on that, yes.
Well, I'm
I prefer to get mine in writing so it's concise, and when you go to those meetings, you got, well, what'd they say? I didn't say this, I did say that, and A lot of people get real emotional, don't look at facts. So yeah, I'd set those up anytime you'd like, and
Okay.
as many as you like. We got to the 12th, we'll just shut the door so you can look at it, but we've got plenty of time to come up with, some of the plans or take some of the ideas and put them together.
And Mr. City Manager, is the information that Councilmember Doherty has talked about, the study and the quotes on restoration and moving it and things like that, is that anywhere accessible for the public to take a look at?
Yes, it's going to be. We were talking about that earlier today, how we were going to try to communicate this to the public, and our PIO, Meg, has been on this, trying to figure out the
Yes.
best way to get this information out to the public. So we will definitely make sure they have that.
Okay, it's just this community is so much into their history.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And I really want to encourage and engage the community. And I find that, when you sit down at a table, one idea leads to another idea, and you might come up with a really good idea, which you otherwise wouldn't think of.
Yeah.
So I will coordinate with Meg regarding when these community engagements would be.
Sure.
Is that okay?
And have as many as you need, or whatever you think would be good on that. And like I say, I got the thing cleaned out and get it opened up. I want to get mine in writing, so we can look at them, costs and stuff. They're going to set that up probably on our website with what all the estimates were, who all's looked at it, what their thoughts were on it. So we'll have all that information. But we're open to ideas, and the whole idea is to get that corner cleaned up and get that thing reused, get tourists to view it again. And it's been locked up for years. I mean, you pull up there and look at this thing, and, well, that's it. So if it was put back together and used in some story, it can still be told. But if we leave it like this much longer, the story is it was there once, because it won't be there long. And people need to go out and look at it and look at what's original still, what's not original, and realize that the original parts, there's not a lot of that that's solid. So the question is, when they go to take it apart, as gently as they can, and we've got estimates on what we thought that would be, they've all said, and that's not guaranteed how well it will come apart and what can be saved. But the other thing is, we found someone who could actually make those logs. They're down Silver City, and you can negotiate that, the Hershen family, but then those are replacements. Those aren't original, because then we found a company that made log homes. Those are made on machines and don't look like it.
Right.
Then somebody said, well, just make a whole new fake cabin. Well, it's really the historical part of it. So we've had a lot of suggestions already, and, restored where it sets. Well, that's not feasible because the structure's unsound. It'll have to be disassembled before it could even be sound again. So why put it back up in a terrible spot that it's at, unprotected, and not able to be secured or have any tourism value?
So are you talking about moving it into the museum when you say it's unprotected? What do you mean?
Once they take it apart and they see how much of it they can salvage, the Frontier Trails Museum director said there were a lot of different ways to handle it, but it could not be outside in the weather. So they would have to build either enclosure to put it in. They would maybe make it three-sided or shorten it if they could get enough pieces. That's one option. Another is, I think they call it a diorama, where it's in the building and it's set up inside the building, and you could have all the period furniture and stuff, and you could walk up and there would be a museum official there that would tell you the story about pioneer days and explain it to you. You could touch it and see it. But the fact that it cannot be outside anymore.
Okay.
The days of being outside are quickly taking its toll on it. So if there's enough that they could get it together, preserve the pieces, and get the money to buy new pieces, they would build an enclosure so it's secured. So you have to go in the museum, pay a fee to go in to see it. It would be inside. Much like the Steamboat Arabia, you go inside to see it. Or if they couldn't salvage enough of it, they would put up maybe a three-sided cabin where one end would be open, where the public could walk up to the front of it and see both the insides and the outside of it. So the director said it depends on money, it depends on how much of it they can take apart and keep. So those are the factors that will enter into it. But for sure, once it's there, the tourism fund and the fees to pay the door, and because it's part of the museum, it's forever preserved there and forever has a funding source, where now it has none.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Just as a matter of course, you had this, I mean, an engineer came out and said it was, Ron?
They said structurally unsound. You
so we're
can
gonna
push
invite
on the
people
wall.
into a structure.
Yeah, I wouldn't push real hard, but they could go in it, but they're gonna enter at their own risk.
That's, yeah, do we have a disclaimer on this?
I don't know about that. They have to enter at their own risk.
I'm sorry.
I got
City
swept out.
Manager, what, would you, comment on this?
I think that's a great point. We will have to look into it to ensure public safety at all times. I think that we felt that it would be adequate for people to get a peek in there, but we'll definitely take your comments to heart and go back and make sure that it's going to be a safe opportunity to observe the building.
Now, what the park department, Eric had told me that they would have someone there. So if someone decided to get a little too vigorous and push on something or take a souvenir home, so he did, when it's open, that they would have somebody there, and to make sure you didn't step down into the old phony spring pit or trip on the sidewalk that's dropped down. So he would have somebody there, and that way he would open it up, and then they would close it up at the end of the day. That's what my understanding was. Now, whether they work in shifts, there's one person all day, I don't know, but he said he had somebody there to ensure that the safety of the public.
So before we open this up, we're gonna make sure that there's a plan in place that, makes sure our citizens are safe.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Anything else? Okay. Next, we have a staff report on performance measures, dashboard, fourth quarter update, and year-end summary. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It's amazing now to think about it, but the strategic plan, Independence for All, the council adopted that. It's going to be in a few months, going to come up on 2 years. But one of the aspects of that was a robust performance measurement element to make sure that we were tracking the progress of all the goals that were set forth for ourselves in that plan. So our Truman Fellow, Chris Nayers, has done a great job monitoring this and recording all our progress on the performance measures. So she's here to do the year-end report, the fourth quarter report, and so we'd just like to welcome Kristen to the podium to make that presentation.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. Here's your fourth quarter and year-end update on the performance measures dashboard. So just to go over this briefly again, this performance measures dashboard is built around the Independence for All strategic plan and includes measures for each of the four goals, which are customer service, financial sustainability, growth, and quality. And really the purpose of this dashboard is to help us determine if the measures that we are using help us reach the objectives that are laid out in the plan. So there's about 60 measures that cover almost all the city departments. We also have a few measures from the Independence Economic Development Council and some from the Citizen Satisfaction Survey. Most of these are updated quarterly. However, some can only be updated yearly or longer term. And this dashboard is actually on our city website, so there's more information on there than I'm able to present tonight. But the dashboard on there has information that has a historical graph, so you can see how the measure has changed over time, why we calculate it, how we calculate it, and there's an analysis for each measure on why the result was that way that quarter. So this is your high-level overview for how we did in quarter four on our goals, which will look similar to the last 3 quarters. However, you'll notice that the financially sustainable is pending. That's because the year-end numbers to close out the fiscal year won't be ready until mid-August. So I'll update the dashboard with those when those are ready. So yeah, for the last 3 quarters, the customer-focused, growth, and financially sustainable have all been green, with quality being yellow. So this is what the year total also looks like. So I just wanted to highlight a couple measures for the fourth quarter before I get into the year-end summary. So I picked out a few measures that made the most significant changes this quarter. First, we have the number of rental-ready inspections that were completed. So the Rental Ready program became effective in 2017 with a 2-year implementation. And this is where landlords are required to have their rental units inspected prior to renewing their business license. So the goal each quarter is that we inspect 750 properties to reach 3,000 for the year. So this quarter, we had the highest number of inspections at 847. So we almost met our goal of 3,000 for the year. Next, we have voluntary code enforcement compliance. So this is the metric that shows the percentage of code enforcement cases in which the resident or property owner voluntarily fixed the issue without the city having to come in and abate the violations or issue a ticket. So while this goal has been met every quarter, I wanted to point it out this quarter because we had the highest voluntary code compliance at 92%. So next I wanted to point out the average answer time to the Utility Customer Service Center. So as we're all aware, the new utility billing system went live on May 22nd. And with the new system and with change comes a lot of questions. So the Utility Customer Service Center saw a very large increase in call volume this quarter. So with that becomes higher hold times. So the average hold time this quarter was 13 minutes and 12 seconds. Once this new system has been in place longer and there are less questions, it should go back down toward the goal of 5 minutes. Lastly, I wanted to point out the percentage of storm structures that are inspected. So this metric measures the percentage of the storm sewer system that is inspected each quarter. So the goal is that we inspect 100% of the structures every 2 years. I highlighted the measure this quarter because of its significant improvement. So this quarter we inspected 22% of the structure, while in the first quarter we only inspected 2% and 7% last quarter. So that's a huge improvement. This can be attributed to the equipment now functioning properly and a fully staffed crew, which they did not have in previous quarters. So next I'm going to do a summary of the whole year. So this is not inclusive of every measure on the dashboard or we'd be here all night, but just a couple of measures of interest for goals that were met, goals that exceeded all of year, and those that need improvement. So first I'm going to go over measures that had a longer term goal. So these are things that had a yearly goal or longer, and all of them met their goal. So first we have single family building permits, and this is in the growth category. So the goal for the year was to issue at least 100 permits, and we got exactly 100 permits this year. So the highest number of permits was in quarter 2, in which we issued 33. So this is really helping us reach our overall goal of growth. Next is an exciting one, our median household income. The Independence Economic Development Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and the city set an aggressive goal to reach a median household income of $50,000 by the year 2020. And we recently learned the exciting news that as of July, we have reached that goal way ahead of schedule, and we are now at a median income of $50,122. And if this trend stays, we should reach a median income of $56,000 by 2023. Lastly, number of dangerous buildings demolished. So this council set reducing blight as a really strong priority in the Independence for All strategic plan. And part of this strategy included demolishing buildings that have been deemed dangerous. So the goal for the year was to demolish 20 buildings, and we did exactly that. We spent approximately $180,000 on demos in this fiscal year, with quarter 2 being our busiest quarter in which we demoed 8 buildings. Next, I want to go over some measures that met their goal every quarter, and most of them exceeded every quarter. So first were the communication measures. These were some of our biggest achievements in the performance dashboard this year. Each of our social media platforms saw a significant increase in the number of followers and interactions on posts. Facebook saw an increase of 43%, and we now have over 8,000 followers on there. Instagram saw a 312% increase, Twitter 20% increase, and Nextdoor a 33% increase. The growth of followers and the use of social media as a platform to engage with citizens and provide information is really a success story for our customer service goal. Next, I wanted to talk about our drinking water. So this metric measures the percentage of drinking samples that have tested negative for harmful bacteria. During this fiscal year, we tested 1,300 samples. They were collected and analyzed, and not a single sample showed the presence of any harmful bacteria. So the goal was 98%, and we achieved 100% clean water the whole year. And as we all know, our water department is something to be proud of, as they've also won many awards for having some of the best tasting water in the world. Next is code enforcement inspection times. I know I've highlighted this many times throughout the year, but it really is a success story, as this measure has exceeded its goal every quarter this year. The goal is that 75% of code enforcement cases will be inspected in 5 days or less. This year, the average for the year was 86.5% of complaints were inspected in this time, which is significantly better than previous years. In fiscal year 15-16, only 46% of cases were inspected in this time. In FY 16-17, 69% were inspected. An increase in inspection response times results in a quicker resolution to identified violations, which in turn helps reduce blight and increase the appearance of our city. Lastly, I'm going to talk about response time to water main breaks. This measures how long it takes our staff to respond to a reported water main break, and the goal is to get there within an hour. The department exceeded this goal all year with an average response time of 23 minutes. I think that's a really great example of exceeding customer service goals. Next, I'm going to talk about measures that improved over the years. Some of these may not have reached their goal by the end of the year, but did make an improvement since Q1. The first one is the percentage of animal services calls that were held over. So this measures the percentage of calls that are held over into the next business day. In Q1, the percentage of calls was 15%, which is relatively high compared to the goal of 5%. However, this percentage has decreased each quarter, and in Q4 reached 8.8%, which is much closer to the goal. And if that trend continues, the measure should reach its goal in the next few quarters. And again, I'm going to bring up this average answer time to the Utility Customer Service Center. I highlighted it in Q4 and that it was really high. However, I think it belongs in the improved over the years section because of the significant improvements made before the implementation of the new billing system, which was a one-time issue for call times. In Q1, the average hold time was 8 minutes and 31 seconds. However, in Q3 had dropped down to 5 minutes and 39 seconds, which is very close to their goal of 5 minutes. Once all of the questions about the new system have been answered and customers become more familiar with the system, I believe these answer times will continue to decline and meet the goal of 5 minutes. Lastly, pothole service requests. This is one of the measures that improved the most from Q1 and is now reaching its goal every quarter. In Q1, 74% of pothole requests were completed in 3 working days or less. Each quarter, this percentage has continued to increase, and in Q4 reached 98% of requests being completed in that time frame. The average repair time for a pothole request is 1 day. So lastly, and my least favorite part, is to talk about the measures that need improvement, but it is good to know where we need to improve. So these are the measures that did not make progress toward their goal throughout the year. First, we have fire department response time. So the fire department has set a goal of 6 minutes and 19 seconds for their response time. In Q1, response times were 7 minutes and 46 seconds, but have increased to 8 minutes and 19 seconds in Q4. The department has instituted some changes in its response matrix to address increased call load on some of its units, which will continue to be monitored and will hopefully show some improvement. There are also other changes being implemented, including a new computer-aided dispatch protocol. Next, we have police department response time. So the police department has a goal of 5 minutes response time for priority 1 calls. While last quarter did see an improvement in time, Q4 shows a pretty significant increase to 9 minutes and 1 second, which is the highest time of the year. These response times can be attributed to a few things, which include staffing shortages, as the department has hired over 20 officers this year, but several have resigned, so we have continued vacancies. I believe we're at 8 right now. We've also had a lot of high-profile incidents that require a lot of manpower and resources. But we have done a recent computer-aided dispatch upgrade for proximity dispatching, which will take us a few months to determine the effect on response times. Lastly, we have sanitary sewer system cleaning. So the goal is to clean 33% of the sanitary sewer system over the course of 3 years. However, this year there were many equipment breakdowns and a crew that was short-staffed almost all year. So they were only able to clean 24% of this system this fiscal year. However, all the trucks are back to operational and the crew is now fully staffed. So if we can keep that going, this goal should be able to be met over the next quarters. So that is my summary update of the year. I think it's really great to see which measures have moved over the year, which ones have improved, and which areas that we need to continue looking at. So with that, I offer any feedback, comments, or questions. And this is also where you can find the dashboard online.
Thank you for that. Before I open this up for discussion, I have something. This average time for customer calls, it went up 7% in that last quarter. Now it's up to 13. I'm sure everybody here has had calls about the horrendous time wait. I know that it came out at a wrong time. I don't know why we did the new building during the hottest time of the year, but I guess that was a decision made somewhere else. And I know we have finance too. Mm-hmm. And the people at that call center work very hard. Well, it's time we stepped up for both people, for the people who are making the calls and the people who are answering. If it's needed, we need to take the bullet here and get some more people out there. I don't see this going away. It's only enhanced over the time. Mr. City Manager, I would direct or ask you, Assistant City Manager, to do something here. We got to bite the bullet. The people of this city are tired of the call waiting. Really tired. I'm getting calls all the time and how it averages out. There are lies, there are Dan lies, and then there are statistics. So somewhere along the line, we have to bite the bullet here and help out whatever that department needs. If that means more people, if that means longer hours, we got to do something about it.
Well, we appreciate those comments, and I think we echo your sentiments that the people deserve to have the best customer service possible, but we also appreciate your comment to recognize the stress that the employees have been under trying to answer all these calls. It's pretty amazing because when I first started this conversion, sometimes there were 1,300 calls in queue. Now it's down to just perhaps a couple dozen at any given time. And those call times have gone down, and really we have to thank you. The council have come up with some ideas that have helped us too in this, and include the number taking system has really turned into a great success. We've really separated out people in the lobby between those who just need to pay a bill and those who need help. And we've got that now. The new number system works really good. We're trying to come up with a way where that same kind of an idea could be applied to phone calls, where people could wait in queue, maybe could get called back, or some other way that we could try to make sure that people don't have to hang on there that long. But it is getting better. It is getting better. And as our water director, Dan Montgomery, would point out, that the total wait times are still not where we want to be, but they are getting better. And no one goes home until all the calls are answered. So they are attempting to get more help at it, but we do just appreciate your comments and echo your statement completely, and we need to do everything we can to get that where it needs to be.
I'm hearing again, it's getting better. I don't hear that from the people. Something is adjustment. This seems to be status quo, and I'm saying to you that it needs to change somehow. If it means more people, fine. Let's bite that bullet. I mean, everybody here has had a horrendous feedback on this, and is continuing to have it. Anybody else? Councilman Roberts.
Thank you, Kristen, for the presentation. It seems like this dashboard has been a huge success. I think it is a very quick and easy way for any of us or anybody in Independence to look and see how we're doing. The communication by the city is 10 times better than it ever was before. And even though there's things like this that need improvement, we're working on them. We recognize it. We know where we are. And so that recognition helps. It helps people understand that we're working through some of these problems, but it also helps us to know where to focus. But the communication and the ability of people just to glance at this dashboard and know what's going on is very helpful. So I applaud the city for doing this, and I know it's been, 2 years now since we've had this? A year and a half?
1 year.
1 year? Mm-hmm. This is just the first year, okay. Yeah. So it's very good, and I think it's only going to get better. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you.
Any further items?
Nothing tonight, thank you.